My name is Tessa Morgan, and I grew up believing that my family was built on honesty. We weren't rich. We didn't have huge houses or expensive vacations. We were a normal family from Ohio, the kind where everyone showed up for birthdays, Thanksgiving dinners, and Sunday lunches at Grandma and Grandpa's old farmhouse. My grandfather, Walter Morgan, was the person everyone respected. Grandpa wasn't a loud man. He didn't need to be. He was the type of person who could walk into a room, smile, and somehow make everyone feel calmer. He spent 35 years working as an electrical engineer. He fixed everything: broken radios, old cars, leaking pipes, and sometimes even family problems. But the thing I loved most about Grandpa was his trust in numbers. Numbers don't get angry, Tessa, he used to tell me when I was a teenager helping him organize receipts in his home office. People can twist stories. Numbers just sit there waiting for someone to listen. I never forgot that. Maybe that was why I became the unofficial family bookkeeper. Whenever someone needed help with taxes, bills, or paperwork, they called me. So when Grandpa passed away at 82, everyone expected me to help with the estate. I thought it would be simple. It wasn't. The funeral was small. Grandpa didn't want anything dramatic. He had written down exactly what he wanted years before. No expensive ceremony, no unnecessary flowers, just family. After the funeral, we all gathered at Grandma's house. The same house where Grandpa had spent nearly 50 years of his life. My grandmother, Evelyn Morgan, sat in her favorite chair near the window. She looked smaller than I remembered. My mother hugged her. My uncle sat quietly. Nobody knew what to say. Then the lawyer opened Grandpa's will. I expected the usual things: the house, the car, some personal belongings. But Grandpa had left something for each of his 9 grandchildren, $10,000 each, a total of $90,000. Everyone smiled. My cousin Jason joked, "Grandpa finally made me rich." We laughed. Even Grandma smiled. But then the lawyer continued. Walter also left instructions that his remaining assets should be distributed after final expenses and debts are settled. That sounded normal, until the lawyer handed us the preliminary estate report. The house was paid off. The car was paid off. There were no major debts. But Grandpa's main account was almost empty. I stared at the number. I actually thought I had read it wrong. "Wait," I said. Everyone looked at me. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "What is it, Tessa?" I pointed at the paper. Grandpa had more money than this. The room went silent. My Uncle Mark frowned. "Tessa, your grandfather was sick. Medical care is expensive." I looked at him. "How expensive?" Nobody answered. Grandma finally spoke. Her voice was quiet. "He had hospital visits, medication, home care. Everything adds up." Everyone nodded, because it sounded reasonable. That was the thing about a believable lie. It doesn't sound like a lie. It sounds like something you want to believe. I didn't accuse anyone. I didn't argue. I just asked one question. How much did he spend? Grandma looked uncomfortable. I don't remember exactly. That bothered me, not because she was old, not because grief affects memory, but because Grandpa remembered everything. And Grandma had spent decades managing their household. She remembered every grocery bill from 1998. She knew exactly when the washing machine was purchased. But she couldn't remember hundreds of thousands of dollars. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Grandpa, about his words. Numbers just sit there waiting for someone to listen. The next morning, I started looking. Not because I wanted to find something wrong, because I wanted to prove everything was fine. I logged into the estate records. I requested statements. I contacted the bank. At first, I found nothing unusual, just normal expenses, groceries, utilities, pharmacy payments. Then I went back 18 months before Grandpa's death. That was when things changed. The withdrawals started, small ones at first. $5,000, $8,000, $10,000, then larger amounts, $25,000, $30,000. I printed everything. My dining room table disappeared under papers. I made a spreadsheet. Date, amount, description. Every number had a place. And after 3 days of checking, the total appeared. $312,000. Gone. I stared at the screen. $312,000. That wasn't a few medical bills. That wasn't groceries. That was almost everything Grandpa had spent his entire life saving. I called the hospital. My hands were shaking when I asked for the billing department. I'm trying to verify my grandfather's medical expenses, I explained. After confirming my identity, they sent me the records. I expected a huge amount. I expected Grandma to be right. But the number shocked me. Grandpa's medical expenses during that period were serious. But after insurance coverage, the total out-of-pocket cost was under $40,000, not $312,000. Under 40. I sat in silence, because suddenly the question wasn't, where did the money go? It was, who took it? I didn't tell my family immediately. I needed proof. I started digging deeper. The bank records showed something interesting. Many withdrawals happened on days when Grandpa was hospitalized, days when he physically couldn't have gone to the bank. I checked the signatures. They weren't his. They looked close, but not his. Anyone who knew Grandpa's handwriting would have noticed. The more I looked, the worse it became. There were transfers, large transfers, sent to accounts I didn't recognize. Then I found one name connected to several transactions. My grandmother, Evelyn Morgan. I stared at the screen for a long time. My grandmother, the woman who made me cookies after school. The woman who cried when I graduated. The woman who held my hand at Grandpa's funeral. I wanted there to be another explanation. There had to be. Maybe she was protecting someone. Maybe someone pressured her. Maybe I was misunderstanding. So I went to her house. Grandma was sitting in the kitchen drinking tea. She smiled when she saw me. Tessa, you should have called. I would have made dinner. I sat down across from her. Grandma, I found something. Her smile faded. What? I placed the papers on the table. The bank statements. She didn't touch them. I told you, your grandfather's care was expensive. I checked. Her face changed, just slightly, but I noticed the hospital bills don't match. The kitchen became completely quiet. I continued. Grandpa's medical costs were nowhere near $312,000. She looked away. Tessa, where did the money go? For a moment, she said nothing. Then she whispered, you don't understand. That sentence hurt more than anger would have, because it sounded like she had been waiting for this moment. I loved him, she said. I know. I took care of him. I know. Her eyes filled with tears. I did what I had to do. I felt my heart sink. Grandma, what did you do? She looked at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw fear in her eyes. I saved this family. I didn't understand. What does that mean? She didn't answer. Instead, she stood up and walked to an old cabinet. She pulled out a small box. Inside were documents, letters, bank papers, and one envelope with my name on it. My hands went cold. Grandpa left that for you, she said. I looked at the envelope. Why didn't you give this to me? She sat down again. Because I was afraid of what you would find. I opened it. The handwriting was Grandpa's. My eyes filled with tears. The letter began, Dear Tessa, if you were reading this, then something happened that made you look closer. I knew you would. You always cared about the truth more than comfort. I stopped breathing. The next line changed everything. I believe someone has been taking money from me. I looked up at Grandma. She was crying, and suddenly I realized Grandpa already knew. He had known before he died, and he had trusted me to finish what he started. The truth Grandpa left behind. I held Grandpa's letter in my hands, but I couldn't bring myself to read the next line. The room felt different. The same kitchen where Grandma had made pancakes on Sunday mornings suddenly felt like a place where secrets had been buried. I looked at her. Grandpa knew. She wiped her tears. He suspected. Suspected what? She looked down at the table. That someone was stealing from him. The words hit me harder than I expected. Because if Grandpa knew, why didn't he stop it? Why didn't he tell anyone? Why did he leave me to discover it after he was gone? I opened the letter again. Tessa, I started noticing things were wrong about a year and a half before my death. My statements didn't match what I remembered spending. When I asked questions, I was told I was getting old and confused. My hands tightened around the paper. That was the part that made me angry. Not just the missing money. The disrespect. Grandpa was losing his health, but he wasn't losing his mind. He spent his entire life building that family, and someone made him question himself. I kept reading. I tried to investigate quietly because I didn't want to destroy your grandmother's reputation if I was wrong. But the more I looked, the more worried I became. I looked at Grandma. She was crying silently. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she said, because your grandfather wanted to protect me. That confused me. Protect you from what? She looked at me. From the truth. I felt a chill. Grandma, you need to tell me everything. For a long moment, she just stared out the window. Then she began, your grandfather was generous. Too generous sometimes. I nodded. That was true. He helped everyone. Your uncles, your cousins, neighbors, friends. She paused. And after retirement, everyone knew he had savings. I understood. People started coming to him, asking, borrowing, promising to pay back. But he always said no one in the family would go without, Grandma continued. Then she opened another folder. Inside were loan records. I recognized some names, family members, people who had asked Grandpa for money. The total made my stomach drop. Nearly $200,000. Grandpa gave them this. I whispered. Grandma nodded. He didn't want anyone to know. I looked at her, but that still doesn't explain the withdrawals. She closed her eyes. That was me. The words landed heavily. You took it. She nodded. I did. I wanted to be angry. I was angry, but I also saw something else. Regret, fear, shame. Why? She took a deep breath. Because when your grandfather became sick, everyone disappeared. I stayed silent. She continued. Everyone who had taken money. Everyone who promised they cared. They stopped answering calls. They stopped visiting. Her voice cracked. I was alone with him. I remembered. She was the one at the hospital, the one bringing him food, the one sitting beside him. I needed help, she said. So I started using his accounts. I looked at the papers, but the hospital says his medical bills weren't even close. She nodded. I know. Then where did the money go? She looked embarrassed. I paid people back. I froze. What? The money your grandfather gave away? I tried to recover it. She explained everything. Over the years, Grandpa had helped family members financially. Some had real problems. Some had lied. When Grandpa got sick, Grandma discovered he had been giving away far more than she knew. She confronted some family members. They denied everything, so she started taking money from Grandpa's accounts to cover what she believed the family owed. But there was a problem. She didn't just recover money. She hid the withdrawals. She created confusion, and eventually, the missing money became a bigger secret than the original problem. You should have told me, I said. She nodded. I should have. I looked at Grandpa's letter again. There was more. Tessa, if you discover the truth, remember this, anger is easy. Understanding is harder, but justice requires both honesty and compassion. That was Grandpa. Even after being hurt, he still wanted fairness. I spent the next few weeks investigating everything. Not to punish Grandma, to understand. I hired a forensic accountant, someone who could trace every transaction. The results were shocking. The missing $312,000 was divided into different categories. Some money had gone to repay old family debts. Some had been used for household expenses. Some had been transferred to relatives who claimed they needed help. But the biggest discovery was this: a large portion of the money had never been spent. It was sitting in another account. An account Grandma had opened because she was afraid the family would waste Grandpa's remaining savings. She had hidden it, not stolen it, hidden it. The forensic report proved everything. The family meeting was uncomfortable. Everyone came to Grandma's house. My mother, my uncles, my cousins, everyone who had benefited from Grandpa's kindness. I placed the report on the table. Nobody spoke. Finally, my Uncle Mark said, "So Grandma didn't steal it." I looked at him. No. He looked relieved. But then I added, "But she lied." The room went quiet again. Because that was the truth. And truth doesn't always pick sides. Grandma apologized. She admitted she was wrong. She admitted she should have trusted the family enough to ask for help. But then I showed everyone another part of the report. The list of money Grandpa had given them. The loans, the gifts, the unpaid promises. Everyone became silent, because suddenly the missing money wasn't the only thing exposed. The family's behavior was. People who had criticized Grandma for hiding money had spent years hiding their own debts. My Uncle Mark looked away. My cousin Jason apologized. Others stayed quiet. Some people don't apologize because they are sorry. They apologize because the truth finally leaves them nowhere to run. In the end, Grandma returned the remaining money to the estate. We followed Grandpa's wishes. Each grandchild received the inheritance. The rest went into a family trust for future generations. But the biggest change wasn't financial. It was the way everyone saw each other. Months later, I visited Grandma. She was sitting in the garden, the same place where Grandpa used to drink coffee every morning. "I miss him," she said. "I do too." She handed me a small notebook. "Your grandfather kept this." I opened it. It was full of notes, numbers, dates, thoughts. The final page had one sentence written: "A family's true wealth is not what it owns. It is what it refuses to destroy." I cried when I read it. Because Grandpa had been right. The money was never the real story. The real story was trust. How easily it breaks, and how hard it is to rebuild. My grandmother made mistakes. My family made mistakes. But the truth gave us a chance to fix what lies had damaged. I still keep Grandpa's notebook. Not because it reminds me of the missing $312,000. Because it reminds me of the lesson he spent his whole life teaching me. Numbers tell the truth, but people decide what they do with it.